Hello, everybody. Welcome to the August 18th meeting, the work session for the Talbot County Board of Ed. We are here at TCEC. It is 5:30. We're going to go ahead and get started. We do have a quorum present. And to begin with, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I second that.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the work session minutes from our July 14th, 2025 work session?
I make a motion to approve the work session minutes from July 14, 2025.
A second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. We're going to move right on to our work session topics of discussion, starting with new business. We will discuss all of this before it may potentially come up again on Wednesday. Yes? No? Yes. Okay. And guiding this discussion will be Mrs. Werner. Take it away.
Good evening, President Jackson, members of the board, and Dr. Pepikai. Tonight I'll be sharing the work of our TCPS AI committee and our guidance on artificial intelligence for the 2025-26 school year and moving forward. This guidance document represents months of research, collaboration, and careful consideration of how AI should be used in our classrooms. Our goal is to ensure that AI empowers students and staff while maintaining academic integrity, equity, and human oversight. So just to give a little background of the timeline of this implementation, this started in the fall of 2024, where we began reviewing sample policies and guidance documents. Dr. Pepikai attended a conference. I also attended a conference. And we started to put all this information together in a shared folder, where those of us who were conducting some research and getting samples were putting things together. I will say that Maryland is a little bit behind some other states with setting some sort of policy or guidance, I should say, as a state. They do have guidance when it comes from the government, but not necessarily from like MSDE. However, there are some states such as North Carolina, which you'll see referenced in our policy or our guidance document, that has been implementing guidance for the past several years. So some of what we have put together is a combination of different sample pieces that have been implemented in other states or other schools. MSDE also did provide us with a few sample drafts from schools, from LEAs in Maryland that had been already kind of working on this. Calvert County is referenced a few times in our document as well. So what we did was we put all this information together and started to look at what makes sense for TCPS. How can we simplify it? If you do some research, there are some documents that are very, very long. So we wanted to make it something that everyone could take in and actually put into implementation. So that was in the fall. We began reviewing those documents and then put together a committee. And the committee, I'm going to move forward for just a second so you could see who is on the committee. We wanted to make sure that our committee had representation from our district as a cross-section. So we had teachers, supervisors, and administrators from multiple schools and various content and grade levels. So we were making sure that we were seeing this from the lens of all of our schools and various content. Particularly, I want to highlight that we had Miss Melissa Richardson on there, who's a graphic design teacher, because that is an area that has come up a lot in research as well, of all the different imaging you can create with AI and how we can use it for good and not necessarily use it to replace the creativity that goes into her courses. So I'll go back to my timeline. Then once we had our committee, we began putting together our draft. So again, piecing together all of the things that we had created. And I will say, and Dr. Pepikai could probably agree with me, it can be very overwhelming because it's constantly evolving. So to keep up with it is, it can be very challenging. So we then began to put our own spin on what we thought aligned with our strategic plan and our priorities in our district, and made a draft development of our guidance. That draft was then reviewed by our committee twice, and then received approval from that committee, and then we then piloted it in presenting it at our secondary schools, because we felt that that was where the most need was. A lot of our secondary teachers and administrators were saying that they felt like they needed some guidance and support on how to not just handle AI when it becomes problematic, but also how to use it as a tool to enhance instruction. Moving forward this year, we're looking for opportunities to visit our elementary schools, because believe it or not, there are elementary students that we're finding who are using it themselves as young as second and third grade, that they know how to use it on their iPads. And being a mom of a fourth grader and a kindergartner, and I see what students can do at a young age, I feel like it's imperative that we keep up on this and make sure that we're providing this guidance for our youngest students as well. So again, this was our committee, and these were the conferences that Dr. Pepikai and I attended. She attended the Maryland conference, and I attended the Career and Technical Administrators Conference in December, and went to various topics and sessions on AI. So you have the document, and I'm not going to go through every piece of it, but I wanted to highlight some of the key components of it. One was that this is serving as a roadmap for responsible AI integration. It highlights our SMART framework, which represents support in learning, maintaining equity, account for privacy, reinforcing transparency, and training our educators. We really want to make sure that we're focusing on responsible use for students, and that AI can bolster creativity, support collaboration, and even provide tutoring in some settings. Again, we wanted to also have a section that was dedicated to responsible use for staff. AI can support lesson planning, feedback, and differentiation, but we really wanted to highlight with our staff when presenting this to them that it is a supplement and never a replacement for their decision making. Instructional strategies can be created, simulations, visual aids, differentiated learning, and feedback tools. And then we also highlighted prohibited use, which would be plagiarism, full dependency on AI, and harmful actions such as bullying. This is something that came from North Carolina Public Schools, and has been used for the last several years. And it is a rubric that we found really helpful, and have seen this in other state and district guidance, those who have already adopted their own documents to support students and staff. And this hits on the component of transparency. Can I use AI on this assignment? So that's not a very simple question of a yes or a no, because it depends on the type of AI. And there's various degrees that you could be using it. So we decided that this was a crucial piece of our document, so to have that transparency both for students and staff, so that students can articulate for themselves, is this tool acceptable? And so teachers can have a tool that they can be upfront with their students of what they expect. So rather than just saying yes or no to AI, giving a specific degree to which they can use it. So just a few examples, and this is something that has been presented to the staff at St. Michael's Middle High School, Easton Middle, and Easton High School. And I will say that they did appreciate this rubric and found that it was a helpful way to communicate transparency. So this is something we'd like to pilot this year, not for every assignment, but we are encouraging staff to use it when appropriate so that they could be upfront with our students. Few examples of what this could look like. No AI use is obviously none whatsoever. However, you could have something like editing assistance, which if you have heard of Grammarly, is a tool that would be considered editing assistance. Some teachers, depending on the assignment, may not want that, some do. In colleges, one of the things that I'm reading about in universities, they're finding that a lot of students use Grammarly, but professors are having to be specific whether or not you're allowed to use it or not, because it could be picked up in an AI detector, which is another component of our guidance document. So again, being transparent of whether that's allowed or not depends on what the assignment is. You could use it for just getting ideas, so just assisting a level 1 in ideas, asking it to brainstorm, using it as a thought partner. And in some cases, it could be a large component of the assignment, but it's not necessarily what we're assessing students on. So the best example I could give for this would be, I was a former science teacher. There were times where my students used vocabulary to develop different types of art, or posters, using it for writing songs or stories, and to be a little bit more creative. I wasn't looking at what they created in their music or video as necessarily their level of understanding of the science content. That was a way for them to express themselves. So at the end, I wanted to see what content they put into that. And if we were to use it for something like that, AI could be used to help generate the media that they're making, if that's not really the skill we want to see if they can do. So that's a piece where it could, in a sense, replace a step in the process, make the learning, because we are on very tight pacing guides sometimes, it could speed up that process so that we can have more activities like that and engage students, but it's not necessarily to replace their thoughts and their learning with that. So it all depends on the assignment. And ultimately, what our beliefs are, and this is what I had asked that our staff, when I visited the secondary schools, come away with, is understanding that AI is constantly evolving. Transparency is key on both sides. So as a student, feeling comfortable to know how to ask whether or not they're using it and being specific in what they ask for, hence the rubric. But then also our staff being transparent when they're using it as well, or when they're allowing it in their classroom. It should be enhancing our instruction, but human oversight is imperative. So we are not using it to replace any positions or staff members, but it is really a guiding tool that can help teachers in certain areas of their preparation, making their lives a little bit easier, but it shouldn't be replacing their oversight. And ultimately, when issues arise, because it's something new and evolving, and if you conduct research about situations in school districts with AI, you'll see lots of different conflicts arise. We really believe that it should be a teachable moment for our students, and rather than jumping to discipline and consequences, that we're using it for a teachable moment first, so that our students are leaving here with a clear understanding of how AI can be used to enhance their education, not replace it. Any questions?
I just want to jump into, so you saw Maryland had a conference. So the 24 superintendents decided that we heard a lot about AI. And so last year was the very first conference that we held for superintendents to at least understand, learn, share what each of us are doing. And we brought in speakers to talk about this. And so I brought that information back, which added to some of the things that are in here and what we were hearing from some of the speakers that we had that have been traveling around the country and talking about this, visiting different school districts. So that's where it started. They're going to have another one this December, or in the winter or fall. They're going to have a second AI conference, and we'll probably have it annually since things are evolving. But that was the start just last year of us coming together in our state for the superintendents to gather to talk about this.
I know this went before the policy committee and they did discuss it. Can you talk a little bit about why you're presenting it as a belief and guidance document versus a policy?
Sure. That is something that has come up a lot in the conferences that we have attended and the research that I have been conducting so far. Because it's evolving, there has been recommended that districts have a guidance document rather than a policy so that they can edit it as needed. We don't really know all the capabilities yet and what we might need to edit, so it allows us to keep up with the times of AI, but I will add that The way that we're handling it at TCPS is Mr. Wilson is going to be updating the technology acceptable use, and it is referenced there through the AR so that it is tied to policy, but it's not a policy itself.
It would seem to me that it would fall under the academic honesty or dishonesty portion of the policy as well, based on whatever the assignment is given. Is that correct?
Yeah, they tie together. That is referenced as well. And we also, the way I look at this is, it's very similar to the handbooks that we provide our students every year. That's not necessarily a policy, but it's part of our practice of having a handbook that overall has the same principles across our district, but might be slightly edited in each school. Our handbook also is referencing this guidance as well, so that students receive clarity of that in the beginning of the year and the expectations.
I think that while I do want to follow best practice and what everybody else is recommending, this is obviously a new topic for everybody. The way that I think our policies and our ARs are set up is the policy is the governance sort of, and the AR is a more nimble document and does have that ability to change and flex as necessary. And so I think that like most things, I want to see the data and the background before we move into it. But I would be thinking that we would be moving under a guidance sort of document for this school year and see how it goes, and that we are moving towards the direction of creating policy from what we learn. Is that kind of where we're at?
I would just caution what's in policy, again, depending on, I guess it would depend on the level of specificity that's in the policy. One of the challenges that has come up, and Ms. Spurrier and I have talked about this, our policy when it comes to plagiarism and academic integrity is tied to the Maryland Code of Conduct of what we use for discipline. And our AR actually has the chart that lists that. That's not updated in Maryland's Code of Conduct. So that's where things are in a little bit of transition for us. Not every district lists it the same way from what I've seen so far, but we have our AR is using Maryland's Code of Conduct. So my suggestion would be that we wait until the state updates their Code of Conduct, and then we could avoid having to update it more than once. And we might not have to make as many changes, and it could be found in that updated guidance from MSTE.
I think that makes sense. And sorry, I will stop. I'll give everybody else an opportunity. But I don't particularly like gray area when it comes to setting the standards for everybody and knowing that this is a gray area. AI is new. It doesn't have firm boundaries. It doesn't really exist yet. And so we do have to live in this area of gray area, but I just want to make sure that we are enforcing any sort of discipline or consequences or any sort of expectations equitably and fairly and,
Right.
and equally kind of across. And if we don't have solid policy to lean back on and say, well, this is the policy, these are the ARs, I find it gets stickier and into that gray area. So that's why I'm saying I'd like to think that we were moving towards solidifying more guardrails.
Right, I agree, and I think that that would be the appropriate place. And it's my understanding that the state is working on updating their guidance and having something that all LEAs can adopt. I just don't know exactly where they're at in that process.
My question is who's paying for it? I'm assuming the families, if they're going to use outside like ChatGPT or anything?
There's no cost. So ChatGPT, you have to be 13 to use. So we're not recommending that our students use ChatGPT. There are products that are designed for students. So if you have the opportunity, I know that the document was shared with you, and it is in a Google Doc for a reason. There's a lot of resources there that are updating, and they're actually organized by content area and what it can be used for, and they're for students. So there was a gentleman that I had the pleasure of meeting at one of my conferences, and this is his full-time job now. He's a consultant for AI, and he leads podcasts, he has a website, and he actually has a Google document that he constantly updates as a resource center, and it's specifically for students in schools, and it goes over updates and policies and laws and all those types of things. So that is linked here. It's called the ABCs of AI. It's linked within our resources, and it's something that I've presented to our staff in our secondary schools, and I'm also scheduled to visit a lot of our elementary schools at the beginning of the year and kind of tailor my presentation to them. When I have gone to the schools, I've given just a brief overview of tools that they can use, and they're also free for our staff. Now, with any other subscription, you can pay for a pro version that does cost, but this time we have shown our teachers some examples of free resources that they could use. But it wouldn't cost our families anything.
That was actually my question, because there's so many tools for AI right now. Just making sure that if a staff member was going to use a certain AI tool, that all staff would have access to the same thing, so it's kind of equitable around the board.
Yeah, correct.
So that was one of my questions. And then the second thing is I just wanted to recommend to the board that we do adopt a policy for AI. Now, I would not recommend that it be very specific right now because AI is growing. I use it a lot for marketing. However, I do suggest that we have something in place just to set some safety standards, such as, not uploading any confidential information about maybe the instructor or the student. So something very, it doesn't have to be very specific, but something very general about safety, in my opinion, would be very important. So I would like the board to, consider that.
And that's a great point about privacy and safety. That was something at our leadership retreat. I did a brief presentation, and we went through is it okay to use it for this? Is it not? We went through some examples of when, like, sharing personal information, things like that would not be acceptable. So that is being reviewed with our staff as well, but that's a great point.
I agree about wanting a policy, and I think in general our policies are not very specific. Our policies, if you look at them, tend to be very broad in scope and very general, and then the ARs do become very specific. And I would think that we could make a policy that would house a nimble set of ARs to change and flex as necessary, but also within the ARs linked to the various other policies that are touched on in AI, like student privacy, educator privacy, again, academic integrity, student affairs. It's an umbrella sort of area that covers a lot of different areas, but you could talk about it in the ARs, and you could link without even rewriting them. You could just say this breaks down into this area, while touching on all of those things and not getting too far ahead of ourselves, creating something that isn't created yet. I would like to suggest that this goes back to the policy committee, and that they look at that and about how to address all of these, and then brought back to us in the form of a policy and an AR at a later date.
Yeah, I agree, because scrolling through, it's talking about bias against non-native English writers. I feel like they're already at a disadvantage just learning the language, and now here's another tool. I'm assuming all of that's in English, or no? Is it?
Let me clarify that for a second, because that could be kind of confusing. So that is in reference to AI detectors. So AI detectors, if you're familiar with those, are they use an algorithm and pattern to determine to predict if somebody is using AI or not. There's lots of different detectors out there. Some of them you can pay for, some of them are free. You don't always get the same score. And I'll say from my own experience and my coursework, I have tested it and got different scores, and it's completely my writing. So that is in reference to the cautions of AI detectors, that they actually can provide false positives for our non-native speakers because of the patterns that non-native speakers tend to use in their writing, that it can develop false positives of an AI detector. So not that AI itself would provide any barriers. It could be used actually to help support them in some tutoring resources or in differentiation. That is more of a caution for detectors.
Okay. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, easy to think, yes.
Anybody else questions about AI?
No, I was just going to say thank you for bringing this to us because I like to see, TCPS move forward, and AI is definitely moving forward. And we are behind. We keep saying AI is very new when really I was using AI in 2021. So it's evolving and we're learning. So I like to see TCPS go in this direction.
Thank you so much. Next up, we are going to discuss the portrait of a graduate led by Dr. B.
So what you're about to see is a very nice video that we've incorporated our students in talking about the portrait. We will show it at our opening day on Thursday, but we wanted you to see the group that put this together. You may have to click.
Here at Talbot County Public Schools, we believe in educating the whole child. It is about more than just academics. Here at Talbot County Public Schools, we believe in educating the whole child. It is about more than just academics. It's about doing whatever we can to help shape well-rounded individuals who are prepared to succeed in college, careers, and life. So let's hear from some of our students. What does it mean to be ready for the future?
I will be a critical thinker. That means I ask questions, look at all the facts, and find smart solutions. We don't just guess, we think things through. That's being a critical thinker.
I will be responsible for my actions, I will help others, and stand up for what's right.
We all come from different places, but we treat everyone with kindness and respect.
We make our school and community a better place.
I will be adaptable. That means I don't give up when things get tough.
I will embrace learning from mistakes.
Sometimes things change, but that's okay. We learn and grow every time.
I will be a team player. I listen, share ideas, and work with others.
When we work together, we're stronger. Everyone has something special to offer. Cuando trabajamos juntos, somos más fuertes. Todos tienen algo especial para ofrecer.
It's important to speak up and help my group solve problems.
I will be empowered. I believe in myself and set goals for my future.
I take charge of my learning. If I don't understand something, I ask for help and try again. I'm learning new things every day because I'm a lifelong learner.
I will be proud, I will be strong, I will be me.
So you've heard it from our students. The TCPS Portrait of a Graduate reflects the talents and qualities every student should develop before they walk across the graduation stage. This is an essential component of our new strategic plan, Aligned by 2029. Thank you. So again, we wanted you to see this. This is part of our part of the strategic plan, but also what we want to see and we'll continue to talk about with our students when we get into our groups and are out and about around the district. So we will be showing that. I will be talking briefly about that at our opening day on Thursday, but then throughout the year, that's going to be kind of the whole plan is going to be what we're going to be focusing on this year.
We had a fairly lively discussion about this before this video was created, and I'm curious about your thoughts, my fellow board members. How did what we talked about translate into what you just saw?
I liked it, and I like the fact that you could tell that the students were really reflecting on themselves and their desires and their visions for themselves. And I'm always impressed to see the students that I either know or have seen before, and just watching them, shine through that. So I did like that. I like the key components and how they related it to themselves. So I'm happy with it.
There are some special To Me students in this video too, and I didn't know they were going to be in it, so yeah, it's heartwarming to see them.
Did they come up with that verbiage, or was that pre-written for them.
That was written for them, and I have to give kudos to Dr. Horsey and her team that went out and did this and found the students, and you might want to give background of how you created that with them.
Thank you. So one of the things that we did as a team, and kudos to Ms. Debbie Gardner, Mr. Devin Beck, and also Ms. Sarah Clagland. It was a small but powerful team. And so what we did is, of course, using the strategic plan, identified those areas that we needed to focus on and contacted students and families. And thank you to those families, because people were on vacation and made arrangement or had dance, and they showed up to help us that day. And so we were able to put together a script. One, we wanted it to definitely reflect student voice and not be so complicated, and they showed up and delivered. And also a special shout out to the student who was in the CTE program, because that was his idea, but that gives us kind of the hope and also the pride that they're using what we talked about, that he wanted to be in the automotive department because that's his goal moving forward. And he was able to make that connection. If I go and speak there, because I really want to be in this program when I get to high school, and that's an 8th grade student. And so we all were really happy about that student making that connection on his own.
You know, I like that.
I do want to say, I think that this was something that we've been working on for a year and a half now, discussing this, and we've thrown out some really complicated and complex ideas, and we have used some huge words and some very lofty goals for these kids, and I am impressed at how it turned out, because I think these things are things that we were trying to say, and the kids said it better, maybe not their words, but their presentation of what they were saying, their ownership of who they want themselves to be and who they want their peers to be. I think that came across much better than anything we have said in 18 months.
Well, I really like how in each of those focus areas, you also, through them, we understand what it means, that there were various elements that were expressed for each of those ideas. And I think those elements also captured a lot of things that we've talked about here. So yeah, it's a great job. And I think it's something we'll be reflecting on and thinking about, and, maybe you could see more things coming from it, for more students to engage with it as the year goes on, and what it means to them and what they're going to do with this in the coming years.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
I had this thought looking through that, and I thought, well, how do we measure all of our graduates? How do we know? And I thought, like, I saw this civic. So I thought, what if every student took a civic test to graduate and to pass the GED? Then everyone, you would at least know that is the same test that everybody takes, the civics and a GED. I'll just throw that out there as an idea.
What I kind of liked about it is that we could see that there were different components to it. It might mean different things for different students. Maybe not every student can, we know we have special ed students, we have people who are at all different places, and yet the concepts that were presented about civic responsibility were things that many people could embrace and engage in and live out that element. So I thought that was neat, the way it actually reached a lot of different people.
To measure it, though, how do you measure all that?
Thing to ask them. How do you measure it? How do you demonstrate it? How will you demonstrate this? Be interesting to see. Yeah, different. Yeah, what does this mean to you, and how will you live it out?
You raise a point that I have been meaning to. This is kind of a sidebar. I have lots of questions from the community about how we teach civics and where in our curriculum it is incorporated. And it is my understanding that we teach it in 10th grade, and it is a required course for all 10th graders. So for a future work session or meeting, if we could have a presentation on how civics is taught in our schools and what part of the curriculum it is weaved into and where we see that, because I know that we do, and I know we do it well. I just haven't been in high school in quite a while, so I can't necessarily speak to that, but would love to hear it from you.
Is it reasonable to ask throughout the year, maybe not every subject or maybe not every event, but I'm just interested to know if the portrait of a graduate that we have come up with now, if it's still relatable at the end of the year and the next year after that. So maybe asking like throughout the year, like what these concepts mean to the students. You know, do we need to add something to it? Do we need to take something away? Because this portrait of a graduate to me is more so what we would like to see out of our future community members as adults, not necessarily the kid that they are right now.
It feels like a, hey, write this down kind of note, but I'd love to revisit this in 4 years at the end of our strategic plan and find out where these students went. Some of them are older, will have graduated, you know, like what do you see now? Like, do you see yourself here? Like what areas have you grown in? Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you, Dr. P. And team, small but mighty team, thank you for working on this. No, I just meant closest. Next up, we're going to talk about our consent agenda items, and that is, we're starting with Dr. Horsey on this. As a reminder, these are policy and AR updates and revisions that we are going to vote on in one large package. So if you've got questions, please ask now. If you have come up with anything between now and Wednesday and you're like, wait, hold on, we can pull any piece out and talk about it again, but this is what will show up as the consent agenda.
So good evening, President Jackson, board members, and Dr. Pepakaye. Just bringing the policy as well as the AR. The policy, personnel policy and goals, talks about the how, what the expectation for employees are, the policy in terms of best practices and expectations. The AR leads into the why. When we talk about identifying positions in terms of terms, being really specific as best that we can. When we talk about conduct, you'll also see when we talk about professional attire, punctuality, conduct in the workplace, technology, all of those things are listed under the AR. We also have lifted up some of the hiring practices and updated some of the language that goes along for our current practices.
So my concern is that with the AR, this would be personnel policies and goals, and it's in both of them actually. I know that sexual orientation is a hot topic right now, and ethnicity and gender and so forth, but what we're missing is natural origin and religion. And that comes from someone who has a best friend who's an American Indian who has been discriminated against, and from we're a Jewish family. And anti-Semitism is on the rise. It's covered. You don't hear about it in the news, but there's a large amount of anti-Semitism going on that really needs to be reflected in a positive way, if that makes sense.
For that, Dr. Horsey, you could probably look at the educational equity policy and put that entire line there. So that should cover everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and our anti-discrimination policy too covers. I don't know if the two match, but I would want them to.
Thank you.
I think I brought this up at the last time we discussed this, and I'm not sure if it falls under this particular policy. You said this covers technology. I don't want all the teachers to throw rotten tomatoes at me, so hope this doesn't get us there. But I am concerned that we don't have anything in writing that oversees social media usage, whereas I know other, I haven't read a district-specific policy, but other larger corporations do. And really, I mean, using social media to disparage their employer or make remarks about students or staff or otherwise alienate a part of the school community. I would like to see that represented somewhere in here.
So we do have a social media policy, 5.16, and in that policy, it talks about the personal use of social media should not interfere with students or employee workplace or cause disruption to schools or at work. So that's just the policy. The AR and our employee handbook spells out a little bit more in terms of what the expectation is around that, but we do have a policy around social media. At some point, it probably will need to be updated to reflect some current practices, but there is a policy. If I look at it from the HR lens, if I needed to address the situation, I do have policy to be able to support those conversations.
So this is not a concern, just a question. Do coaches fit under the support staff? I know you can't list, each individual role, but I didn't know if they would fit under support staff under this policy.
They could, but in terms of coaches, they are just like support
Be
staff or an
professional?
employee, and maybe I can
Sports coaches.
right. So I can add them in there.
Okay.
It wouldn't be professional staff?
No, not professional staff. More lines like support staff.
Anybody else questions for Dr. Horsey? And this is first reader, correct? This is second reader.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I didn't realize it was this policy. All the way at the end, I can't tell if the red is new verbiage that you're adding. Teachers and staff must have the qualifications required, but it's after the word that says "in." So I didn't know if that's supposed to fit somewhere else in the policy or if it's supposed to be there.
It should probably be yellow.
Okay, and you want it after "end"?
So it's
Looks
at
like a
the-
typo. I need to go back and make that correction.
Oh, okay,
I make that
okay.
adjustment.
Just curious, you didn't get any staff feedback on this, did you? Or community feedback? Did anybody give any feedback?
Just the policy committee.
I guess when would anyone else have seen it? Other than the policy committee?
They get posted online for a month. They're posted on our website for a month.
Okay, do you think anyone knows to look for it there? Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that we had already seen this. When the policy comes to us for first reader, we then post it publicly for anybody to see. I'm pretty sure it goes out in the newsletter or the SMOR that you send.
And the weekly update.
Yeah.
My weekly update.
So that
Oh,
there
yeah,
are links to it for
once it's
comment,
come
yeah.
to us at that point. I just didn't know if there was any point before that anyone else saw it.
No, they have time to comment between first reader and second reader,
Okay.
which has been a month. I thought this was in first reader. I completely forgot that we already talked about it. Are we good? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have policy and AR 7.2, which is also in second reader, and this is employee code of conduct.
So my apologies, I lumped them all together and spoke about each of them together, yes.
And again, that, if you could add the natural origin and religion to that too, please.
Yes.
I don't remember the exact wording in our anti-discrimination policy,
Policy.
but I think they should match. And so if we need to revisit our anti-discrimination policy to add that, I don't remember the exact wording of it, but rather than just adding wording, I think we should talk about our non-discrimination policy in general, if it's not in there. If it's already in there, then we should just make sure that they are the same. Any other questions about employee code of conduct? Okay, moving along, we have policy and AR 10.31, which is in second reader. It's video recording, and Mrs. Darlene Spurrier will tell us about this one.
So good evening, President Jackson, board members, Dr. Pepikai. As President Jackson just stated, would go for second reader under the consent agenda for Wednesday. You'll notice the policy was heavily revised because it had a lot of the details that was taken out and those were taken out and put in the AR, which actually had a lot added to it as well. What we looked at, and I did send this to be vetted by Ms. Eisenberg, just to make sure that we were closing some of the loopholes that we've experienced over the past several years with the use of our video and the requests for video. So that AR addresses all of those details.
I think this policy itself, in my opinion, is fine, but I just have maybe a clarification just from my own knowledge. So when I was reading this policy titled video recording, I was also looking for aspects of regulation upon regular video recording, you know, having it a part of instruction, things like that. But I didn't see any of that in this policy. So it seems like this policy is just video recording surveillance, not just video recording. So I'm wondering if we need a title change or if we need to add aspects of general video recording while in class and, you know, using it for instruction, you know, very good things.
I can certainly change to video surveillance, but if you look at under the AR, there is a section that says something about recording during instruction, classroom or instructional activities, but students may not be videotaped without parental permission except at public events. So it's under D10 on page 6 at the very top of that page. It does talk about that, but it's very brief.
I agree and think those are two different things. And so this to me seems to be a video surveillance security policy, whereas I think the use of video in the classroom is very different, especially with so many teachers getting nationally board certified. I know video in your classroom is a part of that, and moving towards, I think it falls in line with the AI policy too, you know, what can be uploaded to an AI, you know, student privacy. I think it's another one of those things that touches on a lot of different areas, but to me, that's not security and surveillance, that this lives somewhere else.
Do we need to have two things? One, any indication of how long we keep these surveillance tapes? And I assume we have signs out front so everybody knows, right? And at the football field and wherever else, just to remind them that they're under.
It's also in the student handbook as well, yes. We have
Well, I'm talking more for
notification.
parents and that sort of thing.
Yes, we do have notification. There is reference in there about how long things are kept. It's a little bit tricky because some of it cycles through, and once it gets to the end of the cycle, then it starts to record over top of it. The direction that I had gotten from Mrs. Eisenberg was not to be terribly specific about a timeline that it's kept, because every cycle is different, because some of it's action censored, like it'll record once there's activity. So this camera might last longer than this camera before it starts to record over it. It's a little tricky.
Just wanted to make sure.
So I guess for me, just a clarifying question, are you asking that we change the title to video surveillance?
Security. I like security instead, personally.
Any of that works, just not solely video recording, in my opinion. Because what I see, the subsection that you were saying may reflect my question is actually under security, control, and maintenance of recorded images. You know what I mean?
And while that might be in there, I also think it is its own thing and should be talked about elsewhere. Yeah.
That would be my suggestion. Video recording security, video recording surveillance, but you have the word surveillance all over the policy, so I would say keep it consistent.
Okay. I'll change then to video surveillance.
I agree. Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you. Next up, we have, oh boy, school year 25-26 calendar amendment request. I know this is Dr. Einhorn's favorite topic, so she's jumping out of her seat to talk to us about this today.
Thank you, President Jackson. It's always a pleasure to bring the calendar to the board. When the board deliberated about the 25-26 calendar earlier this year, there was a desire to reduce the number of half-days in the calendar. The board was concerned about the impact on families that those half-days have, but the unintended consequence of that is that there was also reduced time for professional learning for our staff. I did share with you, as the calendar came forward, that the blueprint included professional learning requirements and that the Maryland State Department of Education was working with LEAs at that time to help support us in finding ways to make sure that we demonstrated that we were in compliance with those requirements. One of the ways that they sought to do that was to provide grant opportunities for local LEAs to apply to bring professional learning high quality to their districts. So the good problem that we're facing right now is that TCPS is one of the districts that was awarded a grant by MSDE to bring Dr. Jim Heal, who is a nationally recognized expert in the science of learning, to come to TCPS to present to all of our staff. It is very rare in my many years of experience in Talbot County that we have the opportunity to bring a national expert to speak here directly to our teachers. So this really is a unique opportunity. Dr. Heal currently works across the country to infuse learning science principles into teaching practices that can be applied by staff right away to create greater engagement for our students. He earned his doctorate from Harvard University, where he was also a professor in their Graduate School of Education, and he has presented in Maryland to individuals from the LEAs. So we've been able to hear him, and Ms. Warner, who you heard from earlier this evening, was one of our staff members who was there in attendance when he presented. So we can attest to the fact that the message he would bring to our staff would be high quality. His message is intended to equip teachers with research-based strategies that they can apply in their teaching practices to focus on student engagement that results in deeper learning and better retrieval of long-term knowledge. We know that students are exposed to a lot of information, but using science to help our teachers figure out how to help them retain that and retrieve it is what's going to make them better lifelong learners. And that work is especially important as we think about closing the learning gaps that we see in our data for students. So this is a high leverage professional learning opportunity for our teachers. So in order to provide that opportunity, I would need the board's approval for an amendment to the calendar. Our current 25-26 calendar designates November 12th as a half day for students and it was professional learning for teachers in the afternoon. And November 13 is already a no school day for students, but in the calendar, it's listed as a full day of parent conferences for elementary and a full day of professional learning for secondary teachers. The request would be to make November 13th a full day of professional learning for our staff to engage with Dr. Heel, both as a large group, but then in smaller school teams, and to move conferences for elementary to a half day on November 12th. We do recognize that this is a big ask because we want to engage our parents in conferences, and I would not come before you if this was not a unique opportunity for professional learning that I feel is really important for our staff. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. This is for your consideration this evening, but would be part of the consent agenda for Wednesday.
Does it impact the end of the school year?
It does not. The only impact is moving a full day of elementary conferences to a half day.
While I'm excited about this opportunity, I love grants. I love high-quality outside speakers. I have heard loud and clear from our elementary teachers for years that they need that full day for conferences. And something that was brought up during the calendar committee was the idea of a flex day, maybe offering conference time in the evening and allowing teachers to flex some part of their schedule. I'm not really sure how that would work in this scenario, but it was brought up by a parent who was on the committee who said, it's really hard to get there during the day, and that doesn't mean that I care any less about my students learning, but if there were evening hours available, I would take advantage of conference time. And so as we do as a district look outside the box for innovative ideas, is there any way to fit that in so that the teachers could have their full day of conferences and make, I'm not sure how that would work in this scenario, but if we could consider that as an option, I think that it would be appreciated, both from the teacher's perspective that it counts as a part of your work day, and from the parents who are saying, I just can't show up at school at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I believe Queen Anne County does that. I think David has to, so I could ask him if you wanted some insight on that.
I have a question. Is Dr. Heel, is that his name? Is he here? Are the teachers expected on the 13th to attend that the entire day?
That would be for the entire day. So there would be a keynote in the morning. Then there would be opportunity for breakout groups for each level, elementary and secondary, to think about how they would be applying these principles, and have Dr. Heel and the individuals he would bring with them to work directly with the staff at that time. So we're not just hearing it, but we're taking the time to think about how we would apply it in practice to have an impact.
And it would be a mandatory attendance from the staff?
That is correct. Our professional learnings that are scheduled are required of all staff.
I think that's a fabulous opportunity for our teachers.
I love the evening idea. If they could get compensated, maybe, I don't know how that would work. Could they get subs for half the next day, like, or the day of?
I don't know exactly how it would work, and sorry, I'm throwing out a sort of half-baked idea at you, but if we could flex some days somewhere, maybe in that week when they're working and students are not, I'm not sure what it looks like, but I don't want them to lose that conference time. I don't want to ask more of them than is fair and what they should be working, but I think that would be a great compromise. But I'm in favor of the request that you're making. This sounds like a great opportunity, and I wouldn't want to see it not come to fruition.
I'll second that. Can we attend?
And I guess this is just for my my eyes, because I do not have my glasses. We do not have access to this calendar up here. It's locked on our presentation, so if you could unlock that for us. I can't see the green, any of the dates that you're saying up there.
I make a motion that we approve Dr. Einhorn's request to make November 12th a half day and November 13th a full day for professional development, correct?
Second. Miss, I appreciate that, but I believe it's the voting on it is part of the consent agenda on
Oh, it is.
Wednesday. But I will.
Pause. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do not rescind the motion. We'll just carry it over to Wednesday. Okay, thank you very much. Now we're up to unfinished business, and we are going to get a presentation about the TCPS Employee Health Center. Hopefully it's a great one, and I don't
Yep.
see Mrs. Jones.
I'll jump in.
All
Yep.
right, thank you, Dr.
So
P.
just wanted to update, keep you updated of where we're going with this. You could see construction is expected to be complete September 15th. Opening is targeted for this fall, pending the hiring of a provider. Right now, they are looking for a physician's assistant that they are working on right now. As you can see there, that last bullet, very limited response for physician assistant. So they have kind of now offered a signing bonus for that to try to sweeten the pot of that. But things are still moving forward. Pictures are here. This is, again, where it's located, 508 Whitawall, where that restaurant there is on the end. And the inside of what they're doing inside with the construction. And that's it. So we'll continue to keep you as this continues to move forward. I do plan on having a slide on Thursday for my opening day to kind of announce it. So as part of that for the staff so that they can hear about it as their first time. But we'll continue to go around too to every building also with our communication.
Could you please forward us the job posting? I don't know if it's on our site or if it's separate, because I know this community is fairly well connected to
Okay.
the medical community. And
I'll
might
talk
know
to Sarah
somebody.
about that. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm kind of surprised about no PA. Are they reaching out to like the colleges, the medical schools to see?
I'm not sure what on their end, what their search, practices are, but I'll make sure you all get that.
I will say, when we toured the one in Queen Anne's County, the provider there said that the job posting looked so good, she thought it was a scam. So she didn't actually click on it for a while because it came up and she was like, that can't possibly be a thing. This looks way too good to be true. So even like in the initial stages of the interview, she was like, I don't know if this is real. So I don't know if we're just not getting applicants because it's similar scenario, which is why I think if it comes from somebody here to somebody that you know, it might hold more weight. Can you update us about the funding?
I'll have Ms. Jones just about where
And
we
maybe
stand
they
with
can put
that.
it on social media.
Hopefully all will fall into place perfectly, but what happens if we are ready to open, but we don't have a practitioner?
So they have suggested temp, and we opted not to go that route. We want this to open up in the right way. So we are willing to continue to lean on them to make sure they get someone, because the last thing we want to do is to have something and not be up for our staff. We want to make sure we have it done well.
And temps are expensive, and ideally, you want somebody, like you said, that's going to learn our employees.
Thank you very much. Any other questions about Marathon Health right now? Okay, I think that was the last thing on our list tonight. Does anybody have any other questions about anything we talked about? I'm sorry, Mr. Schaefer. I missed you. You're not on my list. Okay, surprise.
So, yeah, full disclosure, it was a surprise to me too, and not at any fault of Mrs. Brundage. I missed it on an email. So the pictures are very amateur-ish, and they come from my cell phone. So, quick update on Chapel. Yeah, so we're going to be ready to open. That's the important thing. We did squeeze a lot of work into a very small amount of time, which was a bit risky, but the team has pulled it together, and things look fairly good. Staff returned today, and it was very smooth, according to Dr. Clow. So no no significant complaints that can't be addressed. We are still working through some minor details with construction through this week. And it just so the board is aware, there were some things, concessions that had to be made in order to be ready. Some of those concessions include like some of the terrazzo flooring in the main hallways did not get done. So we have exposed concrete, which is how we ended the school year in parts of the building. And it's sealed and polished and looks nice, but it's, some school districts like polished concrete. It was not what we were we were planning to have at this point. Of course, it will be finished. It's just going to happen at a later time, but it's all very safe and ready for people to be in the building. Also, the gymnasium is not complete yet. We want to make sure that the flooring has the time that it needs in order to cure. So we did not choose to pour that because we want to make sure that the moisture levels in the concrete are satisfactory. Mrs. Joseph is being a very good team player and will be having some PE outside and or in classrooms or other spaces until we get that done. Beyond that, we're entering the third phase of the renovation, and so if you've been past there, you'll see the front of the building is the third phase, so it really looks kind of terrible from the road, but that is where it is supposed to be, and that'll be the construction of the new media center, and then the third phase is primarily the administrative area and a couple classrooms, music room, and the like. So that that's basically started now, and by the time students come next week, everything should be in good order. So I can try and answer any questions if anybody has any. Otherwise,
I just have a question about a follow-up. So I think it was last month you came forward with a request about furniture, providing furniture. Did that get settled for you?
Yes, thank you. I forgot the furniture piece. The furniture's in place for phases 1 and 2, so that new furniture did arrive on time and is in place. We have our punch list walkthrough tomorrow to inspect all the furniture and go through that. But yes. So the third phase furniture is being warehoused by the supplier. So that was done at no cost, and so we've got that ready to go when we're ready to receive it.
And do you know if the students will be able to use the gymnasium by the wintertime?
Yes. We're really only looking at probably a 2 to 3 week delay. So they should be in there, I'm going to give it conservative, by the end of September.
How many classroom trailers are we using this year?
So we're down to 1 classroom trailer, which is 2 classrooms. So there's only 2 teachers that are outside in those portables.
And if I recall correctly, that saves money in the overall budget, correct? Which I'm sure got eaten up somewhere else, but on the off chance it didn't?
Yes, yeah, that was the intent of getting rid of them as quickly as possible. They were scheduled to be there through phase 3, so we are saving some money.
And one more request. I've already shared this with Dr. P, so sorry if this is a repeat. By this point in the Easton Elementary construction, the board and the county council had a tour. And so I would love for those who operate the purse strings to be able to see what's happening, how their money is being spent. So if we could arrange that sometime, even in the areas of construction, I think that the county council, I don't remember who was, but they're well-versed in hard hats and construction sites. So I'd love for us to be able to show off all the amazing work that's happening there. It really does look fantastic. I drive by a lot just because I live over there and also because my kids go there and I'm curious. Like kudos to everybody. It is a little bit of a mess, but it looks awesome and you can totally see the vision.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Pepkai, I think we have.
Yeah, we have a joint county council meeting coincidentally coming up. So since everybody has that date on there, both county council and us, it'll help us from trying to coordinate who's open. So that's the date that we're planning on. Yep, making our visit, and just want to publicly thank, Mr. Schaefer and his team, who's had countless meetings with, I believe, the president of Whiting Turner or the vice president, just making sure that this project was going to be on schedule, on time. So just want to thank, I know a lot goes into that, coordinating, and Whiting Turner, just for being, there on the job and being accommodating. I was out there on Friday, so I did a walkthrough, met with the people and looked at the classrooms, and going back out this week, just once the teachers are there.
Just to quickly say, the new car rider loop and the new bus loop is going to be transformational alone. It's incredible, and I cannot wait for everybody there to experience the first few days of school and how much more smoothly that is going to go. And that's just the outside. So 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up.
And yeah, I just want to very quickly echo Dr. Pepikai and thank the team, Whiting Turner. They have done a hero's effort in getting this second phase complete. And also, can't forget about Dr. Clow and her staff for all the patience that they've had. I mean, it's for an administrative team, it's very difficult. I just want to be very, upfront on that. It's tough. You're trying to prepare for staff, but yet you have all of this craziness going on. We had to move all of the teachers' stuff again. It was all stored over the summer, and then it had to be moved into the final destinations of the classrooms that they're in, at the last possible minute. And so it was absolute insanity for Dr. Clow and her team. So thank you to them, and thank you in advance to the teachers for the patience this year through the end of the project.
Yeah, definitely. I believe Dr. Clow and her, Ms. Taylor were in on Sunday. So just constantly thinking of a lot of plans and the what ifs and being prepared. So yeah, just want to thank the administration team over there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Anybody else? All right.
I'm not sure how to make this request. This is more of a topic request for maybe Wednesday. If you could just give a quick, if that's possible, on the bus election and how that went, because we voted on that, we made that decision here, but we didn't. I think we should hear how that went with the students opting in for the bus on Wednesday. You don't have to worry about that.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you all for joining us this evening. We will adjourn for the night at 6:42, and we'll see you back on Wednesday.